After a councilman's crusade against nuisance liquor stores, a homeless man stabbed in Central Park, and two ballot proposals compete to increase taxes for education. That plus scorching heat advisories on this first day of October. Next on CCN Crown City News. Your news, your neighborhood, seconds away.
Idea? The Pasadena Enterprise Zone can help. Pasadena Enterprise Zone, open for business.
Hi, I'm Jesse Avila at the Convalescent Aid Society, a nonprofit organization established in 1923. We provide the free loan of durable medical equipment, of hospital beds, wheelchairs, walkers, canes, and many other items. Your donations and contributions are welcome and greatly appreciated. We are located at 3255 East Foothill Boulevard in Pasadena.
We're here to help you!
Please give us a call and check for availability at 626-793-1696.
Hello everybody, thank you for watching CCN Crown City News, your neighborhood. I'm Sehnita Joshua Mattison. Our top story, Pasadena City Councilman Victor Gordo's crusade against nuisance liquor stores scored a major victory in Superior Court recently, forcing city-imposed operating conditions on a local liquor store. CCN's Paulo Alejandra has that story.
Nuisance liquor stores are liquor stores that, in our view, aren't operated responsibly. And the impacts are felt beyond the premises of the liquor store and spill over, no pun intended, into the neighborhoods.
Victor Gordo has made it his mission during his tenure as Pasadena City Councilman to fight against what he calls the epidemic of nuisance liquor stores. Councilman Gordo says owners of nuisance liquor stores turn a blind eye to inappropriate and oftentimes criminal activity taking place in their storefronts. He says this lack of responsibility by store owners, coupled with no real assistance by state government, has caused nuisance liquor stores to thrive for almost 45 years.
They are thriving in plain sight irresponsibly, and it's facilitated by the fact that we have, at the local level, no enforcement powers. The only enforcement powers are really illusory. They don't exist. Because they're vested with the state.
This super liquor market on the corner of Summit and Orange Grove Boulevard has been identified by the city's council as one of these nuisance liquor stores. In late August, Superior Court Judge James Chalfant ordered Super Liquor's owners Kim Tso and Kun Chin-jae to follow 4 operating conditions imposed by the city. These conditions call for the owners to hire a security guard to clean up any trash around their store, to label alcoholic beverages and bags with the store's name, and to only sell alcohol between the hours of 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. We asked Councilman Gordo how well does he expect the owners of Super Liquor to comply with the conditions.
Now that the court has ruled, I'm hoping that they'll take stock of their own actions and give it a good faith effort to give effect to the conditions and join us in solving some of the problems.
In Pasadena, Paulo Alejandria, CCN.
Well, thanks, Paulo. We also spoke to Daniel Kessler, the attorney for the store owners of Super Liquor and Market. Kessler says that his clients are committed to being a positive influence in Pasadena and feels his client's store has been unfairly targeted by city officials as being a nuisance. He adds that his clients are upset with the Superior Court's decision to uphold the city-imposed operating conditions, and they are currently making plans to appeal the court's decision. Police find a shooting victim fleeing the scene. That plus triple-digit heat temps in fall. What's going on? We'll find out with CCN Weather reporter Naomi Trone. You're watching CCN Crown City News, your neighborhood.
The CCN Energy Saver is brought to you by Southern California Edison.
Dave, what are some other ways customers can save energy?
Well, I certainly want to make sure that they use energy efficiently and wisely. One of the things that we recommend doing is turning off equipment when they're not using it. That's probably the most easiest and most efficient way of reducing their energy costs, but purchasing equipment that has, again, I say the Energy Star rating on it. We want to make sure that they use thermostats that are programmable, because that helps customers reduce operating costs by having equipment come on at the desired setting as well as at desired times. Weatherization, plugging up gaps in your walls or door seals, making sure that you don't have any air leaks.
Well, thank you for that information, Dave. Hopefully customers find it helpful. This has been Luna Petty with your CCN Energy Saver.
The CCN Energy Saver is brought to you by Southern California Edison.
Here's a snapshot of some other stories this past week right here in the San Gabriel Valley. A 23-year-old African-American man was shot and killed last Wednesday morning. Pasadena police officials responded to a report of gunshots around the Newport and Stanton Street area. Officers responding to the report of gunfire stopped a vehicle leaving the area and discovered the victim, Joseph Jones of Pasadena, inside along with witnesses. Paramedics rushed Jones to Huntington Hospital, where he died of his wounds. Police say that the shooting began after an altercation in the front yard of a home in the 400 block of Stanton Street. The victim lived in the vicinity of the area. Police used bloodhounds as part of the ongoing investigation. Witnesses described the suspect as an African-American male in his teens or early 20s. There were several witnesses to the shooting. If you have any information on this incident, call Detective Bill Broghammer at 626-744-4517. Excuse me for that. Pasadena police are investigating an Arcadia man for stabbing a homeless man, Naomi King, in Central Park in Pasadena Sunday morning. Police booked 30-year-old Anthony Freeman in connection to the stabbing. They say Freeman pulled out a knife and stabbed the victim in the lower back after two got into an argument. Excuse me for that. Pasadena police officials say the incident happened early Sunday around 4:35 a.m. The victim, who is in his 30s, is said to be stable with no life-threatening injuries. Eastbound lanes of the 210 freeway between Baldwin and Santa Anita Boulevard will be closed for construction of the 210 bridge, the I-210 bridge that is. Nightly closures begin tonight, Monday, October 1st at 9 p.m. with up to 3 lanes being closed at 10 p.m. and full closure of the eastbound freeway at 11 p.m. on Monday and Tuesday. On Wednesday and Thursday, full closure begins at midnight. The 210 eastbound freeway will reopen at 5 a.m. every morning. During the next 2 weeks, crews will complete the false work removal. The false work removal is anticipated to be completed this Thursday and will bring an end to consecutive night full closures. All lanes of eastbound 210 freeway should reopen by Friday morning. As of Friday, September 28th, 90% of the false work structure, which supports the new construction, have been removed from the Gold Line Bridge. Once the false work is fully removed, they'll get started on the basket weave pattern artist Andrew Lysader designed. Well, it's October 1st, and most of us are planning our next visit to the pumpkin patch filled with hay rides and apple picking. While it's triple digits temps out today, you may want to hold off on hot chocolate. Fall may be here, but you never know it with all the hot weather we've been having. Let's check in with CCN weather reporter Naomi Trone, filling in for CCN meteorologist Curtis Peak, who is out today, to see is relief around the corner for us, Naomi. What do you see?
Yes, relief is around the corner. I'm sure everyone was wondering why triple digits in the fall. Well, the heat is not going to be here for long. Let's take a look outside right now. 91 degrees, winds southwest 3 miles per hour, humidity 22%, along with our barometric pressure 29.81. Our sunrise 6:48, our sunset today 6:34. Let's take a look at our lows. 66 in Glendale. Our highest night is going to be at 74 at Pasadena, at Hamburg 70, Monterey Park 68, 65 El Monte and West Covina. Our highs for today. 97 in Glendale, Pasadena, Alhambra, and Monterey Park. Our triple digits coming in 805 Arcadia and Monrovia and West Covina. Let's take a look at our 7-day forecast. As I said, it's going to be cooling down towards Thursday, cooling down towards Friday. Tuesday, triple digits 102. Wednesday, 93. A trough going to come in, significantly dropping down temperatures. Thursday, 89. Friday, 89. Saturday, 85. Sunday, 82. And Monday, 82. Well, that's it for today. Sehnita, back to you.
All right, well, we look forward to that relief, Naomi. Thanks for that. And you can find out more at crowncitynews.com. While trying to size up the 2 tax initiatives on the ballot to fund education, we'll have economics educator Kim Tso here to tell us about Propositions 30 and 38 next on CCN Crown City News. Your news, your neighborhood. We'll be right back.
My name's Reggie. Just recently,
just try
my wife
not
and
to
I took
die
in her
out here.
sister's children. Now, we already had 4, so I went from becoming a family man to a man with a bigger family. Now, you can't eat love, so I don't know how I'm gonna feed them tonight. How was that, Rich?
I think I look more like Denzel.
That's cold, man.
Play a role in ending hunger. Visit feedingamerica.org/hunger and find your local food bank.
But it would be safe to keep your distance until the secret that will make you smile. Reliable sources say that chicken soup has found their way out of this
Getting closer to nature can get you closer to your family. Go to discovertheforest.org.
2 outs with a runner on first base. Now the big guy comes off the bat, hitting .342 with 92 RBIs and 36 homers.
Chill raw and prepared foods promptly. 1 in 6 Americans will get sick from food poisoning this year. Keep your family safer. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov.
Governor Jerry Brown and political activist Molly Munger have 2 competing propositions on the November ballot intended to raise money for public schools. Feeling the pinch. To help you make sense of them both, we have freelance writer and economics educator Kim Tso in studio to take a closer look at Propositions 30 and 38. Thanks for joining us, Kim.
Thanks for having me.
Well, let's start with Jerry Brown's initiative. What does Proposition 30 do?
Proposition 30 essentially raises enough tax dollars to be able to ward off what Jerry Brown's been calling the trigger cuts. Those trigger cuts amount to almost $6 billion worth of cuts to the budget, more than $5 billion of which are aimed at K through 14 schools. That is K through 12 and community colleges. There are also cuts slated for the universities as well.
So, why is this so essential to Jerry Brown that this initiative passes?
Well, honestly, it looks to me that that really he was not able to get a tax increase through the legislature because we have what's called a supermajority requirement, meaning that 2/3 of legislators have to approve a tax increase in order for it to go into effect, rather than a simple majority, which is true in most other states. And so, not being able to do that, he said that he would get that tax increase passed through a ballot initiative. And so that's what he's trying to do now.
Okay, so if it doesn't pass, then the cuts that he was trying to ward off are going to go into effect.
That's correct.
Okay. So how does Proposition 38 figure in here? Who's Molly Munger and why did she bring 38 up?
Molly Munger is a civil rights attorney and an activist and a philanthropist. And so she has financed this proposition in large part, I think, because she cares a lot about schools and understands that, that schools have not been funded near to the levels that they need to be. And so, so she's put forward this ballot proposition. I know that a lot of folks talk about them as competing ballot propositions. They're actually not really competing in the sense that they could both pass. Now, if they both passed, only one set of tax increases would actually go into effect, but it is possible that they could both pass. In any case, she's designed this ballot initiative to raise money as well for the schools. She's aimed it mostly at K through 12, but also for early childhood education programs, and then also to pay down some of the debt servicing that is paid by the state each year for school bonds. So that's one way that that they've designed it so that it can help the general budget as well.
Okay. Now, I know if with money that's raised through Prop 30, that goes into the state's general fund. How can voters be assured that that money will go to education and, you know, who knows what else it could go into?
Right. Well, for one thing, Jerry Brown's promised that it would go to education. The second thing, education takes up 41% of the state budget, so it is the largest chunk, and that is where, because the tax dollars would go specifically to ward off those trigger cuts, it is going to go really to the schools. Like I said, it's something like $5.3 billion of the cuts are slated towards the schools, so that's where the money's really going to go.
Now, with Prop 38, it raises state income taxes on most people. I think it's like 60% of folks, and some are even below the poverty line. Is this really the right time for us to be increasing taxes on those folks?
Yeah, I think one thing that's important to understand about those tax increases is that it is an increase in the tax brackets for most of the tax brackets. It would cover it would affect about 60% of tax filers. But people's effective rate, what they would actually pay in taxes, is pretty minor for most people. Now, for those people who are making, I can't remember the exact figure, but a pretty high number, and I think it's only affecting maybe 20% of the taxpayers, would see higher increases, and in some cases, at the higher up you go, substantial increases in the amount of dollars that they pay, but their effective tax rate is still going to be fairly low. So even though people have been calling it a middle-class tax hike, I think the effect that people would feel is very slight compared to what it looks like on paper, in theory, when you look at the increases in the tax brackets.
But you know, some critics are saying that, you know, they're a little bit dramatic, but they think it's kind of like holding a gun to taxpayers' head and using children, you know, as the hostages in all of this. Is that fair? Is that too dramatic?
I think that's an accusation that a lot of people have levied against Proposition 30 with Jerry Brown, because he's essentially said, you know, we're going to do these trigger cuts if you don't pass this. And that, in a sense, rhetorically is certainly holding you know, kids hostage in that sense. And yeah, I think that threat is real. And because we do have a budget crisis and it does have to be resolved, and the budget that was passed was based on an assumption that those cuts would happen to the schools if he was not able to get this tax increase there. So it's slightly manufactured in the sense that he's really kind of doubled down all of his all his chips into schools and people wanting to support the schools. But at the same time, we haven't been able to raise taxes in California for in income taxes in a while to be able to help the state budget. And so even though it looks like this is not the right time to do it, it's also not the right time to for kids to be having to pay the price for underfunded schools. It's also not the time for many teachers to lose jobs and for our unemployment to go even higher in California.
Yeah, so talk a little bit more about, you know, in practicality, what will happen if those trigger cuts are, you know, come into effect? How will it affect kids? How will it affect the schools?
Yeah, part of it depends on whether or not Prop 38 passes as well, but let's say neither of them pass. I think what you would see is significant layoffs of teachers, higher class sizes, and possibly, you know, bake sales with cupcakes going for $350 a piece. Who knows?
Better be a good cookie.
Yeah,
huh?
exactly.
Well, let's ask, figure out. So you'd mentioned it, if both of these measures do pass, only one will go into effect. But does that mean, a lot of it gets dragged into the courts to figure out, or is it kind of pre-planned what will happen?
There was a bit of pre-planning done by the writers of both of the propositions, because they each contain clauses that state specifically that if both were to pass, then really only one would go into effect. Now, there is going to be certainly a lot that gets dragged into the courts if they'd both pass, because while there would be considered conflict between the tax initiatives, the tax pieces of it, it's not really clear whether or not some of the other components would be considered in conflict or not. And so, it's not really clear what would happen.
Now, a lot of people do say, with this budget crisis, there's still been schools that have improved. So, it kind of shows that schools can still improve even though there isn't a lot of money. So is this, just throwing money at a problem versus really getting to the heart of what's wrong?
I think that's a really great question. My kids are in a public school district. It's a high-performing district. It's been doing really well. And I've been active in volunteering, trying to raise money for the schools for several years now. And what I've seen, at least from my own experience, is that schools have really been doing their best to try to cut corners everywhere, to ask parents for donations all the time. And when we get requests for Kleenex boxes and toilet paper, and the high school, I ran our foundation for the last 2 years. The high school asked for paper to print on. They've been limited to 3 pages a day. And this is in a high-performing district. We can't expect schools that are doing well to continue to be able to do well if they cut any further. And the cuts that we're talking about are really significant. I think it's somewhere between 6 and 8% of the entire education budget would be cut, and most of it would come from teachers. Our class sizes in our district, our elementary, at the elementary level, kindergartners, there's about 32 to 35 students in a classroom. On Wednesdays, they have to double up, and so that's 70 kindergartners, 75-year-olds
Wow.
with 2 teachers. That's really hard.
Yeah.
Those are tough working conditions. So I know a lot of folks say, well, they've been doing fine, but the fact of the matter is that we're really kind of hanging on to the edge here, and we're about to push people over the edge, and that's not right to do to our students or to our teachers.
Absolutely. I mean, we don't ask those kinds of working conditions for other people. We find ways to alleviate those kinds of stress. And as well with schools, I mean, we're asking them to go to the next level of, teaching our kids, there's so much new technology out there, and working with that technology, and how to can schools even upgrade to some of the technology that's out there?
Exactly. And then the schools that aren't performing well, I don't think that underfunding those schools is going to be the answer to what they need either. I think a lot of times the underfunding of school creates conditions of anxiety and stress that makes it harder for people to actually think creatively, think out of the box, form alliances and collaborations, which we sorely need between teachers and parents and administrators right now. And so really having a situation where we can be a little bit more relaxed about the funding and not so scared that people's jobs are constantly on the line, or where are we going to get the next roll of toilet paper, would make it so that teachers can actually teach and kids can learn.
I mean, that there's some major things on the chopping blocks if they're come down to, okay, how do we save on toilet paper and all of that? But so what do your kids say about all of this stuff? I mean, how are they seeing it? Do they feel it? Because, obviously for us, if we've grown up with a system that wasn't, so constrained, but are they used to it, or do they definitely find it to be a problem?
Well, this year in particular, I think my girls have really started to feel the pinch. And you're right, I think over time, when little bits and bits get taken away, you kind of get used to it, kind of like what's the analogy of putting a frog in water? If you put it in cold water and then just let it heat up, it doesn't realize that it's being cooked. Well, unfortunately, that's really kind of what's happening. But this year they've started to notice things like there wasn't enough money for some of the new textbooks and curriculum, and so what's called consumables, the worksheets that they would normally take home, they haven't been able to take that home. Instead, they've had to take home the textbooks themselves because they don't want to spend on the consumables, which has meant really heavy backpacks for them, so they feel that. PE, our PE program has been cut and changed dramatically, and so they've been noticing now that their PE classes, rather than being 100 kids supervised by 8 adults, they are now at 200 kids supervised by 6 adults. And they have stations that they have to go to, and they realize that something's different here, but they may not necessarily attach it to the budget.
So, and a lot with, some of the education reforms that are being proposed out there, and, there's a new movie out, I'm forgetting the name right now, but, teachers' unions are really feeling the pinch as well and feeling like, all the blame is being put on them. Are the teachers at your school, are they feeling that, and does that affect the kids?
Yeah, I mean, I think that any time that there's a broad attack that's reported on by the media, and in some cases like that movie, I think it's called Won't Back Down,
yes.
Is put forward by the media. This has been going on for a while, but certainly I think teachers can feel really abused by those kinds of things, and I think it really hurts morale. Teachers do what they can. They try to put that aside and do their job, but it certainly is going to affect how they feel about it.
Okay. Well, I thank you, Kim, for coming out here and explaining these propositions, but I think, we just touched the surface, and for people, if they want to get more information, they can go to your website, correct? Yep. Can you give us your website?
Sure. It's KIMTSO at I'm sorry, I almost gave my email address, KIMTSO.com.
You would have had a full inbox with that.
Probably.
Well, thank you so much for coming here, and we hope you'll join us again and see how these ballot proposals do.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Well, that's it for this newscast. Thanks to check out CrownCityNews.com for more stories. But thanks to freelance writer and economics educator Kim Tso for joining us in studio. Thanks to all of our sponsors, including Southern California Edison, Wink Marketing, the Pasadena Enterprise Center office building with available space, and Dr. Fareed Zarif. Thanks also to the CCN crew. They make this show possible. And finally, we thank you for watching CCN Crown City News. Join us each week as we cover the news in Pasadena and the San Gabriel Valley. For all of us here at CCN, I'm Sehnita Joshua Mattison. Have a great week.